I think Ubisoft have got a bit of a surprise in store for us very soon, and that's a 4th DLC that will be coming out in the next 3 months, which I know is quite a bold statement to make, but we do have a lot of evidence to go through here, which does point to that being the case. However, I do think it's important to preface this video with a polite spoiler warning, because there is some interesting stuff to talk about here, and a polite reminder as well that all of this info has been found in the game files by Pedder, who has an incredible track record for forecasting new content, but he even says himself this info is very much subject to change, so do bear that in mind. Now, we did initially theorize about a Niflheim DLC coming to Valhalla 2 months ago in this video, where we discussed the idea of accessing this realm through drinking a new potion, which was made by Valka in her hut, as well as multiple file references to Niflheim appearing alongside this. While since the recent updates, more and more Niflheim game file references have continued to be added to the main game Valhalla client, and let's actually go ahead and use the Svartalfheim Ragnarok DLC references we picked up last year and compare those to these new Niflheim references to kind of prove that this is indeed an upcoming expansion. Now, Pedder tells me that before the Ragnarok DLC was released, we picked up this reference called ACK DLC Svartalfheim MQ30, with MQ meaning main quest and specifically referencing a main storyline within this new Ragnarok expansion. This is when it gets juicy, because we have the same thing here, but this time for Niflheim we've got the reference ACK EX meaning expansion by the way, NFH for Niflheim, and MQ referencing that main quest we just spoke about, as well as the Hell boss battle, which we'll talk about more shortly. So with that in mind, we do have a clear main quest line noted in the game files, which references a new expansion called Niflheim, which has been presented in the same format that the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC was before it was announced. So it's looking pretty solid, but what is Niflheim, and why would we actually go there in an expansion in Valhalla? Well, in Norse mythology, the realm of Niflheim was a cold, dark, misty world of the dead, ruled by the goddess Hel, who is one of Loki's children, by the way, and is widely considered to be the cosmological opposite of Muspelheim. It's said that the creation of Midgard and other realms finally began when Niflheim's cold waters mixed with the heat of Muspelheim to form this creating world steam, and it's essentially the world of the dead, or the afterlife, for those who did not die a heroic or notable death in life, which was particularly worrisome for those warriors who did go into battle, as if they did die without their weapons in their hand, they wouldn't go to Valhalla, but instead Niflheim. Now, when it comes to location, it's situated below one of the roots of the world tree Yggdrasil, and it's said in Norse mythology that this is the place where Baldr, son of Odin, travelled to after being killed, which we saw play out throughout the storyline in the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC. Furthermore, Hermod, said to be the distant, obscure son of Odin, and who was actually named as a raider in Ravensthorpe, coincidentally by the way, travelled to Niflheim on behalf of Odin to ask Hel to bring Baldr back to life. She responded that if Baldr was so loved by all of the living, she would return him to life if the whole cosmos grieved for him. Well, the story goes that the whole cosmos did grieve for Baldr, except for one person, and you guessed who? Hel's father, Loki. Thus, Baldr was condemned to remain in Niflheim with the Queen Hel, and never would he grace the lands of the living again. And the reason why I'm giving you a little bit of a crash course in this Niflheim mythology here is because I essentially think this is the basis of our storyline for this upcoming DLC, as Loki mentioned to Angrboda in one of the Animus Anomalies that Odin was searching faraway lands to try and resurrect Baldr. So I think for this expansion, we won't be sending Hermod from Ravensthorpe to Niflheim. We as Odin will be going ourselves, and I imagine when Hel refuses to return Baldr back to life, we fight her in this epic boss battle as found by Pedder in the game files. Now, before we move on to some more cool stuff that Pedder's found, if you have enjoyed this video so far, please do leave a like down below. It genuinely really helps me out, so thank you very much. Alright then, so we've got a decent reason to venture to this Niflheim realm, that being to rescue Baldr, as well as being largely seen as a continuation of the highly ambiguous storyline of the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC. But what will this realm actually look like? Well, referencing Norse tales once more, Niflheim was divided into several regions, such as Nostrong, which is notable for the beach line full of corpses, as well as the Castle of Serpents, where adulterers and murderers suffer torture by the hands of their jailers. Additionally, there was a dragon lair found in Niflheim, where the dragon Nidhogg sucked the blood from new arrivals and punished the souls of deceased mortals. So not a very nice place. And interestingly, we have a main quest line here which references a dragon, which lines up nicely with the Niflheim lore. So perhaps we could actually see a dragon in this expansion, which has long been a rumour during Valhalla's lifespan. A bit more clarification on this entry though, because Pedder informs me that the OOB reference actually means out of bounds, which in turn implies a boss battle in a different instance or dungeon. dungeon from the actual main quest area. A good example of this is the fight we saw in the Wrath of the Druids DLC against Baldr, where we kind of had this vision, went into a different world against this boss fight, and then came back to Ireland. So with all of these different areas, regions, or arguably realms within Niflheim at the forefront of our minds here, how will this map actually be displayed to us in terms of gameplay? Well, Ipsarp has recently found a bridge icon in the data, which on the surface may not seem significant because we have plenty of rivers and bridges in Valhalla, but as far as we're aware, there's no bridge icons in the game, so it's now significant enough to feature on our minimap and for us to visit in this new DLC. And I believe these bridges may act as an entry point to these different areas or regions within Niflheim, as Pedder has found an entry identifying a sommelier being located in 4 Niflheim regions, those currently noted as cold, dark, hell, and mist. In fact, there's multiple references to passerelle, and please do excuse the pronunciation here, which is actually French for a gangway or bridge. And if you're wondering why a sommelier, otherwise known as a wine expert, is travelling around Niflheim, well, Pedder has made a solid suggestion that it could be in fact a reference to the origin of the word itself as a person in charge of wine trading convoys and its subsequent protection, which does make more sense to be fair, because I could definitely see a wandering trader throughout the realm of the dead, providing us with a shop to offload our sinister trinkets that we've just recently collected. So all of this info has got me thinking, could this expansion be some sort of mythological floating Niflheim realm with these bridges connecting each region to one another, which then make up Niflheim as a whole, similar to the floating monoliths we actually saw in the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC, but on a grander scale. Furthermore, the roots of Yggdrasil do play a big part in Niflheim's lore, so perhaps we'll be able to see the tree up close here as well, similar to what we saw in Jotunheim, but this time right up against it. Or perhaps we'll be on a world the size of Ragnarok floating around the tree itself, which is pure speculation from me there, just based on what Pedder and Ipsarp have found, by the way, so do bear that in mind. But speaking of which, Pedder has told me that these areas or regions with bridges do involve altars, captains, curse chests, and some sort of ambiguous game mode which involves stealth, ranged, and fight events similar to the mastery challenges. Now, the reason why Pedder says this is because there's game entries referring to Niflheim game mode started and roguelike game mode, which means that you start with a certain loadout of gear and weapons, or alternatively, nothing at all. These curse chests are interesting though, because they're noted as being strapped down and locked up by chain supports, meaning we'll have to break these chains to gain access to what's inside, which is a very intriguing concept and much better than just walking up to a chest to loot it, in my opinion. Now, it is said in Norse mythology that those who stayed for prolonged periods of time in Niflheim would eventually succumb to the cold and mist, eventually dying and remaining there forevermore. And this lines up quite nicely again with another find from Pedder called the Health Fountains. I think it would make sense that if we do venture into certain areas within Niflheim, we would incrementally lose health over time, similar to the Creed Cursed Armor set we picked up in the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC, where if we didn't purify it, it would eventually kill us if we wore it for too long. So if rations aren't available in this realm of the dead, and there's potential for us to be starting with no armor or weapons, as noted by Pedder's roguelike game data find, then these health fountains could act like the bonfire mechanic in the Dark Souls games, which are checkpoints or safe healing areas that are somewhat mandatory for game progression. In the recent realm raiding video, we discussed the whole idea of raiding across different worlds, and I now suspect that realm raiding will take place within this DLC and not be a standalone event, thanks to the new info that Pedder has found. And I reckon it's going to be in a similar format to what we saw in the Ragnarok DLC, that being raiding Muspel camps in Svartalfheim for silica. And while we're on this topic, that's got me thinking that the 3 realm portals now in Ravensthorpe are now meaningless, as I've got a feeling that the original plan was for us to walk through each portal and beat Hildurin in each of those thematic realms, which is essentially what we did in the mastery challenges anyway, but it was easier for it to all happen in Dunwich Castle rather than just popping in and out of each portal vision after vision. So with all that in mind, I reckon we've got a new DLC on our hands here to be released in the next 3 months due to the amount of data that we have, similar to what we saw in the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC game files before it was actually announced. And I think it's going to continue Odin's story and by extension Eivor's in this mythical realm, where we'll start picking up some definitive plot conclusions to close off Valhalla at the end of the year in time for a Rift release in March 2023. As for cost, that does remain to be seen, but I can't imagine this being inexpensive due to the backlash that the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC received due to its high cost ratio comparatively to the amount of game content you actually received for purchasing. Now, of course, if you do want to stay up to date with everything Assassin's Creed, make sure you do subscribe so you can find your way back here easily. And big thanks to Pedder and Ibsar for bringing new and interesting conversations to the wider community. Cheers, lads, and a big thanks to you reloaders who do support me with your own hard-earned cash, by the way. I'm very grateful, and I will catch you in the next video. Coffee is on me.